obviously when you do these events, you want to document it. You're going to have photographers, videographers, all sorts of folks there. If you're going to hire a professional to do that, include updated headshots for your attendees.
Yes.
Right. You've probably already paid and booked for this person's time. Maybe it's a small additional add-on. And if you're going to do that, you do need to announce it ahead of time so people are ready. But it's also another little carrot of here's why you should show up. That's something that so many executives want and don't have time for.
That's right.
And all of a sudden you've solved a problem for them. It's a little additional kind of bonus for why you're there. Their trust, we're going to keep coming back to that word, and appreciation for you and your brand has just gone way up.
It's the value add.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Marketing Blender Show. I'm Ryan Heath, and we are here for part 2 of our client experience series with the amazing Lisa Albert. Thanks for being here with us.
Of course.
In our first episode, we spent a lot of time talking about why customer experience events matter, why we should do them, where the value comes from. And at least to me, that's a pretty straightforward question. They're awesome. They're amazing. They're things that customers like, that prospects like, that business owners like. But as we discussed, the why is a lot easier than the how. But thankfully, we've both done a couple of these. And so we're going to dig into the nuts and bolts of what you need to do to actually put these on. Everything from engaging with a event production company to some DIY tips if your budget says we're doing this on a shoestring. So Lisa, to start out, let's talk about the people that are involved. Everything from the customers to the folks that are helping to put this on. Dig into that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think your very first question to ask yourself is, who am I doing this event for? And so are you focused on customers? Are you focused on prospects? What do you hope the outcome of this will be? And I think once you can answer that question, it helps guide you on your next steps. And so once you've determined the who, I think that is the more important than the how many question. Because you could throw a party and invite all of your clients, but maybe you don't need to talk to all of your clients in this way. So think about those people who are most important in this moment. And maybe it's for an upsell opportunity, cross-sell opportunity. Maybe there's some people who just need a little bit of love. Maybe somebody that you need to just deepen a relationship with. So you want to think really judiciously about who you want to include. And then same for prospects. If you're bringing prospects into this, it's probably a result of an ABM campaign and very specific people that you're trying to get to take that very last step. And so I think the who is very, very important from the who's going to be included in this. Then from your people side, on your own company side, I think you need to ask yourself, do you have the resources to do this internally, or do you need to lean on an external resource? And I'm a big proponent of events can be challenging. And if you've got a professional who knows how to do that, lean into their expertise. If you can afford to bring someone on to help you do it, it's worth that.
There's no question that it's worth it. And sometimes the sticker shock when you get that first quote can scare you a little bit. But again, let's go back to that both short and long-term ROI we talked about in the first episode, the short term that you can plan for and the long term that you're going to reap the benefits of. And having a really, really good professional that's going to dot every I and cross every T, that's what make both those ROI opportunities come to life.
Absolutely. I think the thing that's not always spoken about having a professional do it, sure, they're going to cross T's, dot I's, absolutely, as you would expect. What they also are able to do is think ahead and prevent potential issues that you may not be able to think about or see unless you've just done a million of these. And so there's value in planning for what you don't know and what you can't plan for.
So, some examples of those, little ingrained things that if you've done these enough, you go, oh, yeah, this is important. The venue. The venue's not just a space.
Correct.
Right? It's got to match the vibe that you're looking for. It needs to match the message you're trying to send. There's how are you going to get your folks there? And sometimes, if let's say this is a small event, right? We're putting on a small customer event or a conference. You have flights, you've got transportation to and from the airport, you have hotels, you have parking. right? You have valet at restaurants, or not, depending if
Mm-hmm.
you're in an urban setting, is where you're going to park right next to the restaurant. If it's not, do you have a plan if there's weather?
Mm-hmm.
These are all of those little things that you start going down that rabbit hole and go, oh my gosh, that a professional event planner just kind of does innately.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I've seen that in many at many events, and in the small misses, just you make the point about parking next to the restaurant, and if we're not right next to the restaurant, maybe it's fine to walk a block, but when it's raining, it's not. So do you have a bus that's going to take people? And I've seen people's satisfaction with events go up and down with details like that. I've seen them so excited that, oh man, it's raining. What am I going to do? Walk outside. Oh, here's a bus. This is great. They've thought of everything.
Exactly. And then when you get on the bus, there's already a pre-recorded video that's playing on the TV screens welcoming you to the event,
Mm-hmm.
maybe telling you a little bit, not just about what they're going to experience, but some of the people that are involved.
Mm-hmm.
We've done something with a customer before where parking for their rather large event was about a mile away. And so we used that opportunity to actually route the bus through their facility, drove the route ahead of time, timed everything out. And so the bus ride from the parking lot to check in for the event actually ended up being a full tour, a behind the scenes, if you will, for all their customers, or
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that they didn't get to see.
Very
Timed
cool.
perfectly with the video. And again, it was just some small little details, but even before they've walked in your door, the wow factor's already there.
Right. I think that's it. You nailed it. That's the word, the wow factor. You want them to feel like you've been thoughtful, intentional, you've planned, and you know what's important to them and interesting to them, and then you've wowed them with something.
What are some other wow factors that you have seen at really successful events? And on the last video, we teased a little welcome gift of some sort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think personalized special gifts are always a nice treat for someone. It's super personal. I mean, maybe it's a monogrammed something or other. Sometimes it's just as simple as a thoughtful gift that's useful. I mean, it could even be a leather-bound notebook with your branding on it, that because they're going to take notes at this conference, so you give them a tool that they might need at the conference. Or sometimes it gets a lot more personal. We talked about the boots, for example,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
40 under 40. So all of the recipients of 40 under 40 got their own custom pair of boots. And so that's really cool. And that's something neat that they can walk away with and
Literally.
literally walk away with and display and have for a lifetime.
A neat thing I saw once, obviously, when you do these events, you want to document it. You're going to have photographers, videographers, all sorts of folks there. If you're going to hire a professional to do that, include updated headshots for your attendees.
Yes.
Right. You've probably already paid and booked for this person's time. Maybe it's a small additional add-on. And if you're going to do that, you do need to announce it ahead of time so people are ready. But it's also another little carrot of here's why you should show up. That's something that so many executives want
Mm-hmm.
and don't have time for.
That's right.
And all of a sudden you've solved a problem for them. It's a little additional kind of bonus for why you're there. Their trust, we're going to keep coming back to that word, and appreciation for you and your brand has just gone way up.
Mm-hmm. It's the value add. For sure. And then I think, there's some cool smaller things. Again, I think back to Justin Boots when I was there. And one of the items that we gave away, I found some really cool USBs that were in the shape of a cowboy boot that we had the Justin
cool.
brand put on. And then we were able to put all of our, some presentations and marketing material and whatnot on the USB. But people got to walk away with this cool little, they're like, oh, this is a neat little boot, and it's interesting. But then it's also useful because they had all of the information on it as well.
There's so many cool things you can do. And Blender is going to be doing a version of this for some of our trusted clients. So I don't want to give everything away because we do want there to be some surprises when some of our friends come in. But doing things that, are themed in the area that you're hosting. We're lucky here in Fort Worth that there's such a really kind of iconic city culture, here in our area. But most places have that. And for us, it could be something as simple as, a box that has local coffees, local snacks, local drinks, things that all are tied into the area. And you can do that almost anywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've seen that. I was at an event down in Austin and, they pulled together a goodie box of things that were all very specific to to the city of Austin, and it really gave you a flair and a flavor for where you were. And then there's some cool kind of souvenir things, if you will, that you take back home, and I think of those things fondly. I'm like, oh yeah, this cutting board or whatever it was, it came from the local artisan, came from Austin.
And something that I think gets missed is there are plenty of other businesses you could partner with that would probably cut you a pretty good deal on some of this, particularly if they're also in B2B.
Absolutely.
People also should think sometimes about their local institutions of higher learning. If you reach out to an athletic department, for example, and let them know that you're going to have 15, 20 business owners in town, those athletic departments are loaded with throwaways. Literally, they throw them in the crowd at just about every event, and just tossing in, whether it's the koozie or the sticker or something like that. There's a lot of them that are really willing to do that to help get their brand out there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have our people there. They have all of their cool boxes and snacks and treats. What are we going to do exactly? That's a big question we have to answer.
It is. And I think it's one of the more important questions that you should ask, because while the party's great, and of course we want that to be memorable, what they're usually there for is the content that you're giving them. So I think it's important to note that content has to be specific to your brand, to your clientele. Often, like we said before, we're trying to solve a problem. Well, what can we offer them that will help solve that problem? And then what's the best format to deliver that information in? Do you have a guest speaker that's coming in that is just, an expert in that area, and so they're interested in hearing from this person? Is it a slide deck? It just sort of depends on your venue and your audience that's there. Go ahead.
Slide deck. So I want to stop you real quick and ask about that, because you made a really important note here. Slides are optional. Facilitation is not.
That's right.
Because they can get a slide deck anywhere.
Correct. That's right. So I think the way to think about it is slide deck can be a delivery tool for you, but you shouldn't depend on that. So you really want to think about, how are you going to share that information? Now, if you want to also have it in a slide deck and it's something that kind of runs along in the background and gets shared, sure, maybe it's fine. But I think sometimes I've seen people at conferences in particular, they are so heavily dependent upon just reading what's on slides. So I think just thinking about all the content that you're delivering, which tool is the best way to deliver that? So the facilitation is what matters.
Yeah, it's making sure we're putting the person in the in-person event.
Yes.
In a digital age, we get so used to creating things that have to reach across a screen, reach across some sort of barrier. And, let's not bury the advantage of having people in one place together. Yeah,
that's right.
Absolutely.
Well, I think you want to make room for the organic conversation to happen. In particular, if you're bringing customers together, part of what they want to do is network and connect with each other and have I had this problem. Have you encountered that? How did you solve for this problem? And you get that conversation going. That's what's important.
So as we're trying to decide on our content, I want to back all the way up to some of the things that need to happen before the event even starts. And we dug into some of the planning, but as a part of your invite process, of once you have targeted, you have your target audience, so to speak, it's how are you going to invite them? And what other things can that include? What I've seen be real successful are the multi-tiered approaches. It's starting off that, yes, you do your branded email, but that's accompanied by a actual in-person invite. Even better if you have a place on that in-person invite for some sort of very short handwritten message.
Absolutely.
Nobody gets those anymore. And just that little level of personalization that's then followed up a couple weeks later with a QR code that takes them to a short questionnaire. It's totally okay, I think, to ask your attendees, what do you want out of this?
Absolutely.
We're going to have some things for you, but what are some of your problems that you're looking to solve? What are some things you've run into recently? As we polled some of our clients, their biggest question was, what are other people doing that's successful? Well, yeah. Absolutely, we can answer that question. I think a lot of times your clients are going to tell you exactly what it is they would like and give you the opportunity then to say, cool, you asked, we're going to deliver.
I love that. That's exactly right. That can help shape what you deliver to them and know that it's meaningful because they've asked for it. Another cool delivery tool just made me think of this is I have seen, you're right, branded email, written invitation going to them. I've also seen video invitations be very successful, where you might have the CEO come on, record a video and say, hey, Ryan, I'd really love to see you at our summit this year. I mean, usually you're not, these are smaller events. You're not talking to large numbers. So to have your CEO record a handful of those personal messages and send it to them, they feel seen and important and wanted.
Oh, what a great idea. And I am by no means the expert on this, although we do have people that are experts. I bet there's a way that you can AI some of those things.
I bet that's true.
We talked about the value of why we do these things. And we're back up to our first episode. My goodness, with all of the AI things that are out there, I think these in-person organic opportunities are just becoming that much more valuable.
Absolutely.
We have a great event. We have a great plan. We've got great attendees and great content. How in the world, Lisa, are we going to pay for all this?
Again, we need to think in the short term and the long term, of course. And you know that you're not going to immediately see your long-term ROI come to fruition, but you just have to know and trust that what you're doing is building that stickiness and the trust and the relationship that results in, more lifetime customer value. When you're thinking about it on the short term, I think it's important to think about average deal size as a starting place and as a guide.
Perfect.
Because if I'm selling a $500,000 product, I probably could and should spend on a bigger event. If I'm selling a $20 product, it's probably doesn't warrant that same level of event. It is not as hard for someone to convert and to pay the $20 versus the $500,000. So it takes more to court, the more expensive, of course.
It does. And in our first episode, we talked about preloading some of those sales opportunities, preceding them ahead of time and then having them preloaded for your event. And those decisions, having all of that set up, really could be a first step into determining what does your budget need to be, especially if you're launching a year one event.
Absolutely.
So as I'm thinking about my budget and trying to figure out how to divide up that pie, so to speak, where do I start?
Again, I think deal size is a great starting place because you want to think, because that'll give you your scale, of course. And I think you really need to think about just lead source in general. Where do your leads and where do your deals come from? And if a lot of your opportunities from upsell and cross sell, then this should probably be a bigger part of your puzzle and your pie. If it's not, then maybe it should be on the lower end. But I think the important thing to remember is that you could land one good deal or one good expansion of your contract, and that can make it all worthwhile.
Yeah, you could pay for your event that evening if you're really thoughtful and strategic about how you set those opportunities up.
That's correct.
One thing that I know we encourage our clients to focus on is making sure that the budget is spent on things that are going to be remembered. And sometimes things that have value and things that are going to be remembered can be two totally different things. You could spend a whole lot of money on food. You could spend a whole lot of money on music and entertainment, and you should. That should be a big piece of your pie, but at the same time, creating a really unique part of the experience that they're going to go home and go, that was a wow. Talk to her about wow moments. Your long-term ROI on this, as we've talked about, is that trust. It's the stickiness and being remembered, and those wow moments, they go hand in hand.
That's absolutely right. I think some people think, well, I have to buy the most expensive meal and buy the steak, and maybe that's appropriate for your event, but I don't think that should be your go-to. I think you should be thinking about what is going to make this memorable. And that memorable thing might be the boot-shaped USB. I'm not saying that one was, but something along those lines. Unique. It was unique. It was memorable. It was something that they could grasp onto. Or maybe they got some really cool experience they wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. They got to go to a baseball game and sit in a suite that they wouldn't have had access to otherwise. So it's those things that are more, the memorable things are the things that your money should be spent on.
I love that you said that, because you're right. I mean, the reality is that depending on your target clientele, they might be able to go out and get a great steak dinner anytime they want to. They might be able to stay in a great hotel anytime they want to. And it's easy to think of those as your first go-tos in terms of, look, we provide value. But my goodness, you're right. You talked earlier about things that are personal and personalized. Boy, the memorable factor there is through the roof. And the cost on those, if you're really smart about it, can actually be pretty small.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I actually was gifted something once. It was just a simple luggage tag with an air tag in it, but
Oh, brilliant.
had my name on it. It's like, this is really cool. And now I can use this, obviously, and then I will think of that company. It wasn't a high, super high cost item, but it was a memorable piece.
And that sticks with you
Mhm.
far longer than here's the 5-star hotel we stayed in. Here's the great place we went and had dinner. Most people, if you do a dinner, they're not necessarily going to remember the place. They'll remember the people.
Right.
They'll remember the conversations they had, the good time they
Mhm.
had. Also making sure these things are on brand.
Absolutely.
Now, is that on brand with you, on brand with your event, or could it even be their brand?
Any and all of the above are acceptable answers, I think. I think it depends again on the purpose of your event. And I mean, if it's a prospect sort of event, I might lean into a little more personalization and a little more because you're courting them. So it might be a little more branded their way.
Right.
If it's your customer event, probably might be a little more branded your way.
Towards you. Exactly. I saw a setup one time where, and you just mentioned all three, that one of the pre-event gifts, so to speak, it was just a custom folio, but it was the potential customer's brand on it. So that whether they stuck or not, they had something they could take with them, not that they're just going to throw in a drawer because
Sure.
it's from a company that they have no attachment to. But the message that sent was, we do detail
And we value.
and we value you.
Yeah.
We care about you. You matter.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you arrived at the event, everything was branded in that company. But that initial connection was massive. And again, relatively low cost compared to some of the higher dollar things, but boy, you remember it. What are some of the value adds after the whole thing is done? I think we all think about, yes, you send a thank you note, but boy, there's some creative ways you could do that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, maybe it's the CEO video again, back to the, hey, thank you so much for taking your time and spending with us. I think the post is just as important as the pre and the event itself. And I think a lot of people do kind of forget about it. Event's done. Let's, check that box. But I think it's just as important to continue with your follow-up there. So yeah, I think you look for those creative opportunities to speak to them individually, creatively, wow factor again, what's going to remain memorable even when they come home. Maybe there was something cool that happened at the event and I don't know, you recap video of it and almost like a yearbook or something, along those lines that helps them just remember the coolness of the event.
It's the post-event slideshow,
Yeah.
right? A really unique delivery that we've helped put together in terms of delivering the post-event slideshow was letting everyone know, hey, we're going to have this for you. And scheduling a follow-up meeting within a week of the event. Timeliness is so important.
Absolutely.
But that's where you give them that link. And each of theirs has been personalized just a little bit.
Yes.
Maybe it's photos with, your executive team or the sales rep that works with that client. 95% general, and there's just that little 5% customization, but then it's whoever the POC is, right? Whether it's the sales rep, whether it's the client experience manager, whoever it may be that does that follow-up is delivering some of those post-event goodies to them, so to speak. One of the things I love about that is it immediately brings back the positive feelings and the personal connections that happen at that event as you're then diving into what ultimately is a sales opportunity.
Absolutely.
What type of follow-ups do you like for new relationships? Maybe it was a prospect that you invited to your event or a referral that you were introduced to that evening.
Personalized is very important. I don't think that prospects much appreciate just getting the thanks for coming to the event email. But if they got something very specific to them, again, maybe it's the CEO video or salesperson video or some kind of really personal reach out to say, I'm so glad that you came. I hope that you got something out of this. I'd love to continue this conversation with you about how we can continue to help you. And really just, it's got to be the dialogue starter. So looking for those opportunities that capture their attention so they're not just deleting what you're sending. Maybe it is a package, a thank you package, or a handwritten thank you note, something along those lines that capture their attention and then opens the door for more dialogue.
Some of the things that we've talked about definitely lend themselves to big events, which are awesome and fun. But I know you've got some great experience with small events that have been incredibly powerful for your clients. So as you're thinking about smaller events, what are some of the ways that you really drive impact with maybe those one night type things?
Yeah, those have been really successful in that they're more personal, they're smaller. Maybe it's only 10 to 20 people. So you have the opportunity to physically speak with everyone in the room, and they all have the opportunity to speak with one another. So there's a lot more interaction. That organic conversation is really important. We've talked about it even in large events, but in these small events, it's really, really important. And then I've seen these work really well when you have, maybe 75% is customers and then 25% is prospects. And so you use that kind of as an ABM campaign. Let me invite some prospects who are really close to signing. They think that they want to work with us, but they, not quite sure. And then you say, well, why don't you come to our customer only event and
Right.
be our guest? And then you make them feel like your guest. And they get the special treatment when they get there, but then they are also just grouped in with the rest of the clients, and they get to get a feel for what it would really feel like to be a client of yours.
I love that. In our first episode, we talked about keying up those sales opportunities, and there's, even for a small event, there should be, I think, a good strategic mix of trusted clients. Maybe it's long-term clients, for whom ultimately this is a thank you for being with us. Those people are also providing value to everyone else. They're showing that trust, that long-term relationship that's there. Your second tier, I think, is your upsell opportunities. There's your clients who've been with you, where there's a real clear, maybe it's a discussion that's been going on, and you're right there getting ready to whether it's you're getting ready to sign on the dotted line or those final conversations are happening, being really thoughtful about and personalized. You use that a lot of how you approach them and getting those keyed up. And then I love that you just brought up, it's the prospect that maybe is pretty far down the funnel. They are right there and they just won't take that last dive. That I love what you just said. Come be our guest. Come get to see what this is like. Between all of those opportunities, as we keep coming back to is the ROI there for those events, you can almost bake in your costs at all of the different levels. If you're really thoughtful about it, if you go, okay, we have enough prospective customers here that we could pay for the thing. We have enough upsells that we could pay for the thing that night. It is 100% doable. You're never going to hit 100% of both, but if you're really smart about it, you probably can exceed your, needed evening of ROI between the two. And then let's not even talk about the value that, your long-term trusted clients are going to bring to that.
Yeah, that's absolutely a great point.
One of our long-term trusted clients that we do a large customer appreciation event with and help provide a lot of the creative as well as before and after marketing for in their particular industry. This is when I say a large event, there'll be a couple thousand people there. Their budget for this is astronomical, but in their industry, a single sale that night could pay for the whole event. They put on the type of scale that they do because that's simply, what their sales opportunity dictates. We talked about that earlier when setting your budget, that let your sales opportunities drive the budget for this event. And then don't be scared of what that number might tell you.
That's absolutely right. A little bit slightly different type of event, but trade shows, for example, I've invested in large booths at trade shows, and you think, well, do I really need this much space? And do I really need to build out a custom booth and all of the things? But if your deal size is such that it can cover that, then sure, why not? And in fact, had that happen, at a trade show, I had the executives questioning the amount of money spent because we did a custom booth and all the things. And lo and behold, a walk-in customer basically paid for the entire thing in one deal. And that doesn't account for all the other small deals that happened.
As you're going into your event, what are some of both the short and long-term wins from a brand perspective that you should be looking for?
Sure. So, from a long-term perspective, what you want from them, loyalty. You want your reputation. You want them to feel that sense of community. You want them to connect to you. That's really what you're trying to do. That happens in the short term too, but probably really what's going to happen in the short term is more awareness and then conversations, getting those conversations going.
Well, I love that. And I love all of these different things we've talked about coming together to create a really unique thing. And one thing we want you to remember is that these can't come across as simply marketing opportunities, which is so hard because we're marketers and this is what we do. But these are chances to bring together people to bring together your product, your purpose, your passion, all into one great event that leaves your customers, your prospective customers, with such warm feelings and with trust in who you are and what you're about. We hope that you've gotten something out of this, and we hope that you will approach the opportunity to put on your own customer event with courage, with bravery, and with some optimism, because ultimately these should be fun things. And if you do it right, they can be fun to put on and fun to experience yourself. Thank you, Lisa, for coming on and sharing your expertise and your passion with us. And we hope you will remember to hit that follow button, and we'll see you next time on the Marketing Blender Show.